Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. My two co-hosts, Mark Hanf and Nam Phan, are off today, I think. We're starting 2 minutes early, so I won't know if they're going to be coming on. If they don't, no big deal. We do have a guest on. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during this show. And that certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. And today's trivia theme is great movie villains. So we'll see if our guest knows the answer to that. Speaking of which, our special guest is Evan Palmer, who's been on a couple of times to discuss credit scores. Evan, welcome to The Best of Investing.
Thanks for having me back, Edward.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. We always learn all kinds of good stuff from you. You gave me a list of questions here to ask you that we thought the audience would want to hear. So
things I get asked all the time.
Perfect. That's exactly what the audience would want to hear. So let's just start right with it. How does credit score work? Credit scoring work, and what's it made up of?
Right. Well, credit, when we are working on our credit, when we want to improve it, we want to make sure that there's nothing wrong. The very first step is always getting a copy of your credit report from all 3 credit reporting bureaus.
Okay.
So
Transworld and
TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. Yes, these are referred to by many titles: credit reporting agencies, consumer reporting agencies, credit bureaus. I refer to them just as the bureaus. And yes, as you have pointed out, we all know them as Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Yeah. There are others, but those are the big 3. So those are the ones that we focus on, and this is these are the reports that we need to have in hand when we are working on our report. And we'll talk about where's a good place to get a copy of those reports in a bit.
Okay. One
thing I want to point out before we launch into what comprises a credit score, the big 3 that we just talked about, the big 3 credit reporting bureaus. It's important to remember that these are not nonprofit government agencies. No. These are for-profit, multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations that maintain the consumer credit files of upwards of 220 million people. That's a lot of information to maintain. And it will come as no surprise that they are not very interested in whether or not the information in your credit report is accurate or not accurate. Huh. That is your job. And I'm here to help people understand how to do that.
I mean, I got to think that they got to have divisions that just handle people who are upset that, wait a minute, I paid off that loan and you're still showing it as active, or, that sort of thing, or derogatory stuff.
Yeah, right? Everything's done by computer these days, pretty much. It's pretty hard to talk to an individual. But those are the entities that are involved, and our credit scores are actually a byproduct of the information that are in the reports. And the scores are outsourced, essentially. They have what equates to a licensing deal with the bureaus. Okay. So anytime that an inquiry is made about your credit report, the term we use is pulled. A credit report is pulled, and a score is created at that moment in time. And so it's important to make that distinction that the scores are separate, and there are many scores. We don't have just one score. There are dozens and dozens and dozens, depending on how things are weighted by the lender who is considering loaning some money. So it can be any number of different models that are used, and that can be very confusing. And so to get around that confusion, my advice is always don't get hung up on the scores. Get into the report and look at the items, which are referred to industry speak as trade lines.
Okay.
Each account is considered a trade line. We'll just call them items or accounts. But look at those and look and make sure that they're reporting accurately. And if there's things that are inaccurate, then you want to get them fixed. So, you know, there's a lot of moving parts here. But again, the emphasis has to be on what goes into making up the credit score. And there are 5 ingredients.
Okay. We're going to get into that in the next segment. I also want to talk about the difference between a soft pull and a hard pull. Okay. Because there is a difference, and one brings your score down. All right.
Exactly.
Okay. Here we go. See, I know just enough to make me dangerous. All right. Here's our first trivia question. We're talking about great movie villains. In which Alfred Hitchcock film are there a pair of very calculated villains played by the smooth James Mason and the downright sinister Martin Landau? It's a film that I think goes back to the early 60s, if I'm not mistaken. Could be late 50s. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate. Again, here it is. In which Alfred Hitchcock film are there a pair of very calculated villains played by the smooth James Mason and the downright sinister Martin Landau? 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate, which is worth over $100. Stay with us. The Best of Investing. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Edward Brown here along with our special guest, Evan Palmer, to discuss credit scores. But here's our first trivia question. In which Alfred Hitchcock film are there a pair of calculated villains played by the smooth James Mason and the downright sinister Martin Landau? And if I remember, I think Cary Grant is in it. North by Northwest. Okay. I don't know if you saw the movie. It's before our time, but that's okay. All right. Hey, want to make a quick announcement here for the Mount View Hotel in Calistoga is back with us. So every afternoon you can have vino and vinyl wine tasting. Every Saturday and Friday, Saturday and Sunday, join them for dinner and a movie on site. They've remodeled their location, accommodated the outdoor for a movie theater, which is really kind of cool. And by the way, it's got one of the nicest warm pools you'll ever be in. Check them out at the Mount View Hotel in Calistoga, mountviewhotel.com. All right, we are in the studio here on Zoom with our guest, Evan Palmer, to discuss credit scores. And I know there was 5 issues you wanted to go through, but let me, before you get into that, please describe the difference between a hard pull and a soft pull.
Yeah, we're talking about inquiries then.
Inquiries, yeah.
Which is one of the 5 ingredients that go into your credit score. Yeah. And we'll talk about what that's worth in a bit. But to answer your question, again, a pull is industry speak for an inquiry. Somebody wants to find out what your credit's like. And if a person this is the rule of thumb, if someone is looking at your report because they're evaluating whether or not they want to loan you money,
okay,
that is considered a hard pull, and it's going to cost you a handful of points for a short period of time. A soft pull is when you check your own credit, which I encourage everybody to do on a regular basis. And if you are checking your own credit, for instance, through a credit monitoring agency, or maybe you've requested copies from annualcreditreport.com, both excellent avenues to check your own credit. That will cost you 0 points. There is no penalty for that.
It's free once a year, isn't it?
Annual credit report got its name, well, the annual part, because of that reason, that they were providing one copy, and this is one copy for each bureau once a year. Now, since April of 2020, when the CARES Act came into effect with the pandemic, they are allowing people to, and by they I mean annualcreditreport.com is allowing people to pull their own credit reports every week if you want to.
Wow. For
free. So that was one of the items that was placed into the CARES Act. So there's absolutely no reason not to be checking your credit. And that's going to stay into effect until, at least as of this point, until April of 2022 is what I heard.
Yeah, and I guess it's good to check it. Oh, actually, you know, it's interesting. I have, like on my credit card, they'll let me know, oh, my credit score has changed, or anytime I can just go through Chase or Barclays or whatever, and they have a little tab. It says, you know, your FICO score, and I can check it, and it's just given one figure. There's not three different avenues on that. What's the difference?
Right. Very often it will be reporting one bureau of the three.
Gotcha.
And just as a, you know, as a convenience to the consumer, just to give you some kind of information. Of course, and that's fine. It's essentially anecdotal information as you go about your life. But if you are serious about looking and correcting and trying to improve your credit scores and your credit, you know, what's in your credit reports, you're going to need to look at each of the three credit bureaos.
You wonder why they change so much. Sometimes there's sometimes they're fairly close, and sometimes it's like, what happened?
Yeah,
one missed a trade.
Some creditors report to all three bureaus, and some don't. Some may report to one. There's no law that says that a lender has to report to all three of the big three credit reporting bureaus. Okay. So you never know. It could be some mix. There are errors, of course, that happen, and that's a source of differentiation as well.
And before we go on, because people who are listening are probably saying, you know, well, this guy Evan is on the show for some reason. I mean, your business is primarily to help people increase their score, isn't it?
Right. I have a credit repair business locally here in the San Francisco Bay Area called Bay Credit Restore. And so I do work one-on-one with clients to help them improve their scores. And in addition to that, and as a free service, I've just launched, in conjunction with one of my colleagues, Lori Ross out of Texas. She and I have initiated a free private Facebook group, which everybody is welcome to join. What you do is you go to Facebook and you search groups, and the name of the group is Score Momentum. Score Momentum.
All right.
So I want to offer that invitation to everybody to come, and it's a great place to go and ask questions and get the answers that you need from people that know what they're talking about, essentially. And we put up free content every week with the goal of helping our clients learn what it is to, and I said clients, but this is also non-clients as well. This is anybody can join the group. You don't have to be a client of ours. But a big part of our mission is education, because it is such a confusing field.
You know, and the thing is, you know, I think about it. I don't know. You know, we haven't talked about like what you charge for your services, but whatever you charge has got to be worth it, because people who have a fairly low FICO score compared to people who have a high FICO score, and I'll just say a FICO, you know, because that seems to be the industry. Right. It can cost thousands of dollars when you're looking for a loan or a lease. When they're checking your score, because they consider you more risky if you've got a 550 FICO score compared to a 750 FICO score.
So true. It's and especially when it comes to mortgages. You know, that's the most expensive thing probably any of us is going to purchase in our lives, is a house. And the interest rates there, while right now are at somewhat record lows, over the course of 20 to 40 years, the amount of interest that you pay adds up quickly, and it is all score dependent. So the people with the highest scores pay the least, and it's not just mortgages, cars, credit cards,
anything that's got an interest rate attached to it.
People with great credit scores save so much money. And when you total it out, just increasing, and I have a video on my website about it's a very crude presentation.
We'll get into that. Hey, Theo, we're going to get to our next commercial break. Here's our trivia question. Hollywood has featured a number of corrupt lawmen, but perhaps none more than the prison warden Norton, played by Bob Gunton. Which popular prison film does this insidious character appear? Stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Edward Brown here. My two co-hosts, Nam Phan and Mark Hunt, are off today, but our special guest, Evan Palmer, is in the studio. But we're going to ask our second trivia question. Hollywood has featured a number of corrupt lawmen, but perhaps none more so than prison warden Norton, played by Bob Gunton. In which popular prison film does this insidious character appear? Do you remember Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins?
Is that the Shawshank Redemption?
It's the Shawshank Redemption, exactly. Yeah, I figured if I give you that hint, you'll know that. All right, so we want to make a mention here also for the Portola Hotel and Spa, voted among the top 10 hotels in Northern California by Condé Nast Travelers readers. They reflects the unparalleled modern coastal luxury in downtown Monterey. They have 379 newly remodeled guest rooms, and they're pet friendly, and they have award-winning amenities, including the spa in the plaza, an outdoor pool, exceptional dining, a craft brewery, and more, located steps away from Fisherman's Wharf and Cannery Row. Check out portolahotel.com. All right, Evan, okay, tell us about Credit Karma. You see those commercials all the time.
Yeah, and again, this kind of falls in line with our credit monitoring. Everybody should be checking their own credit. Credit Karma is really popular because it's free, and everybody loves free. And I got to say, a lot of my colleagues are pretty harsh in their criticism of Credit Karma, saying that, oh, it's not that accurate and la da da. I actually do believe it serves a purpose of letting people connect with the credit score. I just want you to realize that you're missing some detail there. Okay. Credit Karma is only reporting 2 out of the 3 bureaus. They do not report Experian, at least not at this moment in time. And that can be fine if you want to get kind of a sense what might be going on with your credit report. But if you're working on it, if you want to improve your credit scores, you've got to have information from all 3 credit reporting bureaus, and Credit Karma just isn't set up to give it to you.
If they're giving it for free, how are they making money? Because commercials are expensive.
Yeah, they make their money a couple of different ways, but mostly it's through advertising credit cards. And when you're on the site, they will make you aware that certain credit cards are available, and you might be able to qualify for this credit card. And they collect a fee for for placing that ad. Now, if you go ahead and click through and wind up signing up and getting one of these credit cards, then they make an additional fee. So that's how they make their money, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just being aware of what's going on, and yeah, I mean, when it comes to working on your credit, not the place you want to wind up, but nothing wrong with using it in the interim.
So if somebody comes to you because they have a low credit score, generally, and again, it depends on whether they have a 500 credit score or a 600 credit score. Yep. Is there an average of how much a client usually pays you and how long it takes?
Gosh, that's a that's a tough one because they're all over the place. And
yeah, someone might have 50 credit card issues and someone might have 2.
Well, yeah, and people with really good credit, when they have one negative item, that negative item can hit them disproportionately hard. Yeah. For instance, if somebody has and I'm just going to make these numbers up because there's no menu that you can pull up that says, okay, this is how much X is going to cost you in points. Yeah. We know it from experience and what we see in practice, but somebody that has a 30-day late payment, if they have a 780 score, that 30-day late is going to cost them a bunch of points. And again, I'm just making this up, maybe 70 points, 70. It's a lot of points for one little 30-day late. Now, granted, that's going to go away fairly soon. It's not going to hang around and dog you for years on end. But somebody with a 520 credit score, so not very good credit score, if they have a 30-day late, it's probably going to cost them 5 points.
Yeah, because they go, we know you're a deadbeat anyway. You know?
Well, it's the shiny car syndrome. You know, if you've got a shiny, this is the best analogy I can come up with. If you take a perfect car, drive it off the lot, and take it to the grocery store, and you park it in the parking lot, and it gets dinged by a shopping cart, your car just went from perfect to used in a heartbeat. But the person that's got an old, crummy beater that's all crunched up, somebody runs into that with a shopping cart, never even going to notice the dent. And parts are very similar.
Right. Yeah.
It's not fair, but that's just the way it is. Yeah. The other thing, just sticking with ancillary topic of Credit Karma is the score. They use a different scoring system, and a lot of credit monitoring companies do. They use a model called Vantage Score, which is growing in popularity, but it's still very much the non-dominant scoring system. FICO is absolutely the industry standard. And when it comes to mortgages, FICO has pretty much cornered the market. So if you're looking at your score on Credit Karma and wondering why it's different from the score that you just got from your mortgage broker, that's why, is because you're looking at apples and oranges, essentially.
Huh.
And again, doesn't necessarily make sense, but that's just the way it is.
And do they use the same, like, what is it, 850 is the top score? And
different models have different ones, but yeah, the standard is a low of 300 points and a high of 850. And so when you look at that, that means that if we subtract one from the other, we subtract 300 from 850, that means that 550 points are in play. And this is important to keep in mind because we can relate that to going back to the 5 different elements that go into making up your score, that all of those have to sum to 550. And so we know that payment history is the most important, and we'll come back and talk about each one of those.
Exactly. I know it goes fast, I'll tell you. Okay, here's our third trivia question. Most people think of Lex Luthor when they are asked to name a Superman villain. However, we should not overlook the performance of Terrence Stamp. I don't remember him personally, but from Superman 2, when he plays which diabolical general? See if you remember Superman 2 to me was the best of all the Supermans, that Christopher Reeve did. All right, 888-912-1190. First caller with correct answers win that tanning certificate. Stay with us. The Best of Investing. I'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Edward Brown here, along with our special guest, Evan Palmer. Third trivia question. Most people think of Lex Luthor when they are asked to name a Superman villain. However, we should not overlook which diabolical general from Superman 2. Do you remember his name? He's got 3 letters. General Zod.
No clue.
General Zod.
Okay.
That's okay. All right. I want to make a mention here, too, also for Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael. Pizza the way it ought to be. That's, it's hard for me to even say that commercial because I get hungry for their pizza. I don't know if you ever had it. Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael. Awesome pizza. Check them out. Okay. Let's get into this. What's the best way to increase your score?
Yeah. So, and I'll segue into this. This is because it talks about the second ingredient. So the first ingredient that goes into making up your credit score is payment history. All right. It's important that you pay your bills on time.
Yep.
The second and that's 35% of your score according to FICO.
Okay.
And that might be a shocker. I mean, that's roughly a third.
Yeah.
So that means that 2/3 of your score is not related to payment history.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it has to do with how much available credit.
And the second ingredient, second most important one, is debt utilization. Mm-hmm. And so this comes in at 30% of the score. And this is the ratio of how much credit you have open. So we're talking about revolving credit,
okay,
which means credit cards, store cards,
yep,
and it's a ratio. It's how much what your balance is right now divided by what your credit limit is.
Okay.
And it's cumulative. So you take all the cards, all your credit cards, and you add all the balances and you divide it by the sum of all of the credit limits.
Okay.
And that creates a ratio. And we often hear, if you looked anywhere online, what's a good debt utilization score, you'll read invariably, keep your debt utilization under 30%.
Okay.
Is 30% good? Well, it's all relative. 30% is better than 40% because you want it to be low, but it's not as good as 20%. You know, the people that have the highest credit scores in the country have debt utilizations of 7% or less.
Now, that's on a revolving basis? So like I pay my credit card every month,
Yep.
but I love to use it a lot because of the credit frequent flyer miles.
Yep.
So,
and this is where it ties into your question, is how do you raise your credit score? And this applies whether you have low credit scores or high credit scores, because people with high credit scores notice their credit fluctuating on a monthly basis sometimes. Well, what can happen is when there's two dates. When it comes to your credit card bill, there's two dates on there. There's the statement date. That's when they print it up and put it in the mail and send it to you.
okay.
And then there's the due date.
Yes.
That's when you pay the bill by. And we're all focused on the due date, and rightly so. We don't want to be late with our payments.
Right.
So, and I'm the same way, Edward. I pay off my credit cards every month because I hate paying finance charges.
Yeah.
Because it's like lighting money on fire.
That's true.
And to avoid that, I make sure that I'm in by the due date. However, what happens is when it comes to figuring out your debt utilization and the score related to it, that's calculated on the statement date. So if your credit card comes and has a balance on it, a balance due, that is what your score is being generated from.
By the due date. So like for me, as soon as my credit cards come online and say your credit card statement's available, I actually try to pay it that day.
Yep. That's the best. If you're point conscious, if you're working towards qualifying for a loan, or where every point is meaningful, that's what you do. Is you don't wait for the due date. You make that call, that preemptive call to the credit card company, find out what the statement date is, and then right before that, find out what your balance is and pay it right then. And then if they can report a zero balance to the credit bureaus, you're going to get the highest score possible in that category.
Mine will never be really zero, only because I start charging right away.
Mm-hmm.
But will they say by the due date there was nothing owed?
Well, by the statement date.
By the statement date.
Yeah, as long as your credit card bill comes to you and it says zero balance, then you're getting every point you can possibly get.
Mine will never say zero because I'm constantly using every day. So
Well, if you pay it by the state, well, I hear what you're saying, but it's that reporting date. So it's on the date that they report to the bureaus, which is the statement date.
Because by the statement date, I might have put another couple $1,000s worth of charges back on. But I paid the $5,000.
As long as your credit limit is high, then you're dividing by a large number. That ratio becomes small, and
yeah. In fact, sometimes when
swings become smaller,
is I'll constantly send them money, even just to constantly keep it low. And one trick someone taught me, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm glad you taught me this. Before, I used to go to my bank and pay the bill by having my bank send it, and then I realized, wait a minute, you know what? They send checks that could get lost in the mail, and the credit card company will make me responsible. So by me going on the credit card company's website and paying there, say, you dragged the money out, I'm giving you authorization. Now the onus isn't on me anymore. I just have to make sure the money's in the account. Isn't that correct?
That's yeah, you're cutting out a whole step there. So yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And let's see here. Do people generally know why they have a low score?
Well, because there's so many ingredients, I rarely find somebody that, because one of my questions to a person initially, well, first of all, when was the last time you looked at your credit? Because it all starts with that credit report. And then really the second question is, what do you think is holding your score down, if that's the issue? And generally people have some kind of feeling that something's amiss.
Sure. There was a medical bill that I didn't pay because I argued with the doctor, and
yeah. However, what I find is that is rarely the most important or most significant item on the credit report or factor that is decreasing the score. Again, there's so many moving parts, and the way that you can break through that confusion is to keep in mind 5 ingredients. And we talked about 2 already: payment history, paying your bills on time; debt utilization, keeping your credit card balances low. The third one is age of file. Anything that's old on a credit report is generally good news. So you want to keep, if you pay off a credit card, keep it open. Don't close any account.
You know, what's interesting is some years, I don't know, 5 years ago, I bought a new heater / air conditioner, and Wells Fargo had a special situation where it was 0% for 5 years.
Oh, gotta love that.
I can't give that up. And we're talking about even a really expensive heating air conditioning, because I had to buy 2 of them for the house. And I remember my credit score dropped precipitously. And what I found out was, well, what happened was when I asked for a certain amount, they gave me exactly that limit. So I was 100% utilized on that card.
Interesting.
And that's the only way that I could figure that one cut me out.
Yep.
All right, tell you what, we're gonna we don't have another trivia question, but we're going to cut to our last commercial break. When we come back, we're gonna have some closing comments. This went pretty fast. Stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back with some closing comments. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with our special guest, Evan Palmer, to discuss credit scores. Evan, if I find something wrong on my credit report, what do I do?
And this is going to seem pretty old school and pretty retro, but you want to write a letter. Write a letter to the credit bureau.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing you don't want to do is you don't want to dispute stuff online. There's many reasons why. The biggest one is that, well, the 2 major ones is you don't have a paper trail, and you need that, and you wind up giving up consumer rights that are granted to you in the Fair Credit Reporting Act, wherein it states that you need to mail stuff in order to have these rights. You know,
an email doesn't count.
Email doesn't count.
Wow, because that you have a copy of it. You can send it to yourself. But interesting that they don't allow an email.
Yeah, it's just the way the law is written right now, which of course can be amended, but it isn't. And so the thing to do is, I mean, let's say that there's an old name of yours, an AKA that for whatever reason, somebody got it wrong on the credit bureau report. Well, look, if it's Equifax, look them up, find their address, pretty easy to find, just Google it, and write a letter and say, hey, Equifax, I was looking at a copy of my credit report and I noticed that you got my name wrong. Here's the way it should appear.
Yeah.
And that's it. And what you do have to do is you have to include some proof of identification so that they know it's you who are requesting this information, because only you can do that.
Copy address.
And there's three proofs. There has to be a photo ID, a proof of your address, which if you have a current address on your driver's license, you got 2 in 1 right there. And then the third thing is proof of your social security number. So maybe a W-2 statement or the front page of your tax return or something that has your number associated with your name. And you include that and you send it off to the bureaus. And that's how, that's the process. And they have 30 days to respond to you. And again, that is put in there.
Receipt requested to make sure that they acknowledge it, right?
And that's the thing. Ever since COVID hit, I mean, they used to be fairly good, believe it or not, but since COVID hit, everybody's lagging. And I've absolutely advised all my clients to send stuff certified and electronic return receipt, which is a less expensive way to have them verify that they received it, and then there's no question.
So that you give them an email on that, and they email back the receipt.
On the receipt from the post office, there's a tracking code, and you just go onto the USPS.com website and enter that tracking code, and it will show, your package was received. Take a screenshot of that. There's your proof that they got, and on a certain day, so you know when the clock starts ticking.
Evan, tell you what, give out your information if people have questions about their credit scores.
Yep. I'm Evan at my email, evan@baycreditrestore.com. And my phone number is 415-578-5706.
And we're going to have you on again, because you're always a wealth of knowledge, always learning something, a little bit something every time you're on. You're definitely an awesome guest to have on. Are you ready for our thoughts for the day?
Please, yes.
Once my dog ate all the Scrabble tiles, and for days he kept leaving little messages around the house.
Oh my.
And I went to a website for Oreo cookies today, and I hit the accept all cookies and got nothing. I can't believe that. Terrible. All right, tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Our special guest is supposed to be Steve Moskowitz, tax attorney, so that ought to be a good show. Get some tax advice. All right, thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.